Enid High School. I am here with a relatively recent Enid High School graduate. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Blake Highberger.
What year did you graduate?
I graduated in 2018.
Awesome. Well, I kind of met up with Blake by chance, and he told me a little bit about his story from the time he graduated from Enid High to now. So I thought it would be awesome for you guys to hear from an Enid High grad exactly what his path has looked like, which is non-traditional, right?
Sure.
I mean, not a traditional path, but let's get a little bit of background about maybe your family. Tell me about your parents. What do they do?
Sure. Teacher at Enid Public Schools, and my sister, she's a news reporter at Channel 4. So,
And let's talk about their graduation level, or their education levels.
yeah, so they all went to college, graduated. My mom has her master's, and so they very early on sent me on a path of, hey, we want you to go to college, we want you to get a degree, and after that it doesn't really matter, but we want you to do that. And
So like from a small child, like the plan was always college.
Sure, yeah.
So graduation happened 2018. May comes, you walk across the stage. What was your plan at that point in time? What was your plan?
Yeah, so when I was leaving high school, we had just come off a great season, and I had a great coach.
Oh yeah, he was also a swimmer. We should mention that. He was a swimmer.
And so we had a great season. I had a great team. And so we had really high expectations. And so at that time, I had wanted to work at an investment bank. And so I wanted to go to college, meet some people. And
network.
Yes. Make connections. And, when I was in college, I had a lot of epiphanies, and that kind of changed my path.
Perfect. Well, so you're not still in college then?
No.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what? Well, I have some questions for you. Do you want to just start with the questions?
Sure.
Okay. So these are some questions that I gathered from a couple of current Enid High seniors, some 2021 kids. So let's just go through those.
Sure.
Because I think that we'll get a lot of information from you when you elaborate on your answers to those.
Okay.
First question, what is one thing you wish you had known as a senior?
One thing I wish I would have known is that there are a lot of options. College is an option. There's working in a college town. There's, just starting your career, starting to get work experience. There are a lot of options. And so at that time, I wish I had known all the options I had, and that I didn't necessarily have to go to school. I ended up doing so, but I didn't have to. And so I wish I would have known all the options.
Yes. I think that people don't talk enough about all of those different options you're mentioning, like career tech and the kinds of careers you can have that are very successful,
right,
monetarily, of course, careers that you can have from an education at a career tech.
Sure.
And in Enid, we obviously have Autry. We talk about Autry a little bit, but I think that unfortunately we talk about Autry as, hey, if you're not going to go to college, if you're not college bound, try Autry. When the way that comes across is if you're not college bound material, go to Autry, which is not the way we should be thinking about career tech.
And we should at least explore the other options we have, because Autry might be better in some facets, maybe more affordable.
Yes, because as an Enid High grad, you go for free for 3 years.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Huge.
From 10, 20, 30,000, tuition per year sometimes, and especially for something that's not necessarily necessary. So.
Yes. So your thought is college isn't necessary.
No.
Obviously.
Not
There's all these
all.
other options, right?
Right.
So,
Great
and you
options.
learn that in college.
Yes. I learned that in college.
Can you tell us about, this is totally off script here. Can you tell us about the most impactful epiphany that you had freshman year of college?
Sure. So when I went to college, I had an uncle who he had worked in the financial markets, and speaking with him, I always wanted to work in an investment bank. And so when I went to college, I wanted to network and I wanted to meet other people that could kind of lead me that direction. But as I started to read business books and started to gain understanding, I realized I don't want to work at an investment bank. I want to own an investment bank. And so that was
Dreams, folks.
yeah.
Dreams.
And one thing I would have told myself, leaving high school is think bigger. There's so many opportunities out there, and when you start young, there's nothing in your way. There are.
Yes, I love that.
Sure.
I love that. I mean, you want to keep going? Sorry.
No,
I totally
I'm
interrupted.
good. Go
Okay. I love that. Like, think bigger than what your current dreams are.
Right.
I mean, I want to work at an investment bank turned into working hard, reading books, self-educating, essentially.
Yeah, very important.
Self-educating and learning that I don't just need to work at an investment bank. I want to be the investment bank.
Yeah, I want to be management. I want to be ownership. I want,
That's where the money's at, for
yeah,
starters.
that's where the freedom's at too.
Yes.
Is not only working, having money work for you instead of working for money, but it's also allowing your time to be freed up to work on other activities, to work on things you're more passionate about, to continue to self-educate yourself. And
then later, right now you're doing a lot of hard work. Like, now is when you're putting in the time so that later, let's think 10 years, 15 years down the line, you've got a family possibly, and you've put in all the hard work already so that now you're letting that money work for you, like you said.
Right.
Instead of having to work for the money. But that doesn't mean you didn't have to work for the money initially.
No, it was, there was a big learning curve. I had to get in the game. I had to make networks. I'm in the real estate development world today, but getting in that space is, I wouldn't say it's easy, but you have to meet and you have to go and network with a lot of individuals, and you have to say, hey, I might be young, but I can do it.
I'm eager.
Yeah, and ambitious. So
yes. I think that my biggest takeaway from all of that is that you went to college.
Sure.
$20,000, $30,000, whatever it costs to go to college for a year at an Oklahoma school. And then you realized that I could spend this money a lot better in other ways.
And at that point, I started to buy business books, and I was starting to get the perspective of these authors who have actually built businesses. And that was a real game changer because, at the time, I originally went to OSU and I transferred to UCO, and I was taking some real estate courses, and at that time I was starting to get in the works of meeting with sellers and meeting with investors and trying to find out where my position was in that. And as I was taking these real estate courses, I was talking to my professor, and I was like, hey, I'm working this deal. I have this property that I'm working on. I'm trying to structure this contract for it. And I was asking him for help, and he had no idea what I was doing. And so at that point, I realized this guy might be able to learn from me. So at that point, I decided
because of the books you read.
Yeah.
Because of your hard work you put in. Not because the work you put in a classroom.
No.
But the work you put in outside of the classroom.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Teaching your college professor.
Yeah, and
at that point, you were like...
I said thank you, and I left, so...
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's such a good story.
It's really interesting.
Okay, so you mentioned that you went to OSU, transferred to UCO. What was the hardest part of college?
Sure, and that's a great question because I think it's very important. So I think a lot of people have this idea that, they've gone to high school or they've lived in their hometown for the majority of their life, and then they have to go to a new space, whether it be Stillwater if it's OSU or Norman if it's OU, or even outside Oklahoma. But there is a time commitment to college. There's tests to study for, there's people to network with, there's professors you need to schedule to talk to. There's all these time commitments, and let alone, there's the all-nighters that go into preparing for this. And so that was a real issue for me, at least getting started, because, I had just gotten to this new area and I wanted to explore.
He wanted to have fun. I'm going to read between these lines, and he wanted to have fun. I did it in college. It took me 8 years to get my bachelor's.
Yeah.
I did it in college. So he wanted to have fun, and it's hard to have fun and do all of the obligatory.
Right, and I wanted to have a 4-point. If I was going to be there, I wanted to thrive. I wanted to win in my own terms. And so going to college was a really unique experience because it taught me, hey, I have to give them this amount of money per year. Also, I have to give them this amount of attention per year. And I realized that as I started to start my business, my real estate business, that I can't give them the money, the time, and also have energy
to do your own thing.
Yeah, to expand my business, to grow my network, you know. So for me, it just was a conflict of interest.
Wow. Isn't that crazy? Like, college was a conflict of interest. Like,
Yeah.
it took time away from what I knew I needed to do to be successful. And that's where I think a very common misconception is that
Sure.
college is going to be the thing that makes you successful. When for you, your experience was very different. It was the thing keeping you from doing the
Yeah.
things you needed to do to succeed.
And it just depends on your personality and your personal reality. If you are the type of individual that, you know, wants to work for someone until you get your feet under you and you start to gain experience, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But trying to do that and going to school, and it
just wasn't your path.
No, it was not for me, and
Yeah.
it was very tricky.
And I knew I wanted to go to college because I knew I wanted to teach. And in order to teach, you have to go to college.
Right.
To do what you're doing, you just have to be gritty. You
Yeah.
have to be willing to work, get down in the dirt, and make things happen.
Right.
So we're not saying college isn't for everyone. I mean, we're
No.
not saying college isn't for anyone. We're saying college isn't for everyone.
Yeah, and there are great opportunities in college too. You know, if you're going in the medical field, the teaching field,
Yes.
the news reporter field, even the funeral directing field, as my family pointed out, it's part of the step. It's the obstacle that you got to pass and use as a stepping stone. But for me,
Exactly.
it wasn't necessary, and I met a lot of great people that just said, "Hey, we'll help you. If you have any questions, call us." And so for me, it wasn't easy, but it was simple. I had the people that.
It made sense.
Yeah, it made sense to me, and these people wanted to see me win, and that was very important to me.
Like he mentioned, when he graduated from Enid High, he came off of a winning season. And then he also mentioned that when he was at OSU, he wanted to get a 4.0. He wanted to win. And now he just mentioned win again. I think that is this obviously recurring theme that you have for yourself. You're not willing to lose. You're going to do what it takes to win.
Yeah.
And that is what I think, no matter what path you ended up taking, you were going to be successful at it.
And winning
because of
on your own terms. So I knew that I had goals, and the job was not complete until I had achieved those goals. And so whether it was just putting my head down and getting back to work, or in the sense of going to meetups in Oklahoma City, driving an hour and a half from where I was at to go and meet up with these people and ask a bunch of questions. I might have made myself look like a fool, but here I am at 19, at 20, and these people are telling me, hey, we wish we would have got started at your age. Just
Yes.
imagine what we would have been doing then, and that was a really neat experience.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it takes putting yourself out there, which obviously you have no problem doing. That's part of it, I think, that part of what has made you successful without a degree, without doing the traditional college route, like wanting to win and being willing to learn. Like being teachable in every aspect of your life. I think he wasn't always that teachable. I just want to point that out there. When I started at Enid High, he was a sophomore, and he was not super teachable. He knew everything.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that as he progressed through his sophomore, junior, and senior year, I got to see that growth. And then in getting to sit down and talk with him now, getting to see how he has now understood that being a teachable pupil, being coachable even, is kind of the key to success. Like being willing to learn and not think that you know everything.
Yeah, and also being willing to fail. A lot of people
Yes.
run from failure like it's your enemy.
Failure's an opportunity.
Yeah, and a failure, that is your opportunity. You said it right
Yes.
on. And that's your opportunity to learn, because you plan, you act, you fail, and you succeed in that order. So, for me, I planned. I did the best I could to plan for my business, but there are things that you'll never know unless you try it.
Try it and
so,
probably fail at it.
Right. And from my failures, I learned, hey, when talking to a seller, I can be more professional. I can, there's just little things that you learn from your own failures that sometimes a teacher can't teach you, that you just have to experience on your own. And so that's why I would say for the young people who are saying, hey, do I want to just start a business? Do I want to just work for, a year or so after school, or do I want to go to college? I would say, what's the rush? Take the time to think about what you want to do. And if you feel like it's a rush decision, why not just say, hey, why don't I step back and see, gain some perspective? Why don't I,
self-educate.
Go,
Yes.
we have a great library. And also,
Like
books
the
are...
public library?
There's the public library, there's the Enid library. I haven't been there in a couple of years,
That's
but also there are
Online resources.
there are cheap books online,
Yes.
and there's nothing wrong with buying cheap books. For example, a great way to put that is one semester or maybe 2 semesters could be like $10,000. How many books could you buy for $10,000?
And how much could you learn from those books
Yeah.
for $10,000?
Yeah, for cheap and on your own schedule, without tests, homework, pop quizzes, the
Truly
stress of all these.
learning what you want to learn.
Yeah, it's self-educating.
And that's kind of what you did, right? Like after you
Yeah.
left college, that's the path you went down. You thought like I could spend all this money on books instead and probably learn significantly more.
Yeah, and my experience with my real estate professor really taught me a lot, because here's this person who was pointing me to a textbook when I didn't need to see a textbook. I needed to go out and explore a property. I needed to go out and talk to these sellers. I needed to shake their hand and say, hey, man to man or man to woman or whatever the situation is how can I properly get this deal done, rather than how can I just learn the technicals. The technicals they are important, but they come as you learn. So
Yes, like the experience. Like I went to college to be a teacher. I learned a lot in college, but I learned so much more my first 2 months of teaching than I could have ever learned in my classes.
And internships or just
Yes.
walking up to a business professional that and say, hey, I just graduated high school, or I'm graduating, and I'm looking for some opportunities, and I'm looking to learn how the business works. I want to eventually work for myself or have money working for me, which is, I think, a beautiful concept. And
Yes.
we're starved of that concept. So
Did you know that like this year is the second year that all students at Enid High are supposed to get some work-based learning or job shadowing experience?
wow.
Like Oklahoma has never done that. I'm from California and they've been doing that for 20 years. Like it's part of your graduation requirements. Like you have to do something to prepare you for your career. And what he's saying, that's essentially what you did, right? Like you went out there and you said, hey, teach me your ways.
Right. I asked a lot of questions.
And that's what we're doing with the work-based learning stuff here. Some of the students don't understand the why behind that. So I love that you mentioned that. And that's
Yeah.
totally not in our script at all. But that's why. Because you might get out there in the real estate field and be like, this is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. It's not my jam to just cold call people. It's not my jam to go and just sit down and be like, hey, let me learn from you, and look maybe stupid at first.
Or just inexperienced. And for me, when I first got started, it was just me. And then, as I got more comfortable, I was able to recruit some people, some team members to help me. And so, I started out, it was all me. I was hustling. I was putting out signs. I was making cold calls. And then as I started to get more confident and more experienced, I had team members doing some of those roles for me. And so
the stuff you didn't want to do.
well,
But that's what the hard work led
Right.
to.
Yeah. And, being able to teach other people and share that experience was a delight too, because not only are you learning how to do those things and even fine tune cold calling or negotiating with sellers or shaking their hand, or, I had the opportunity to prepare a team to do that. And that was neat.
And that kind of falls back to at first you were working hard for your money, and now in paying other people, you're making your money work for you. It's essentially, you're paying other people to do the work that you maybe don't love doing.
Yeah, or they were happy to do, and
They were happy to learn.
Yeah, they were happy to learn, and at that time I had other responsibilities. We were starting to grow, and so we had other people to network with, and I had, other people to speak with, because, my role in that business, I was the executive of that business. So I had team members that I wanted to make sure were taken care of, that we had deals coming all the time. And so I moved from, hey, I'm the only one here I'm working, to, hey, I got to make sure my team is provided for, and that I'm really being a leader on the court and off the court, and trying to keep this cash flowing to them.
Yeah, I mean, flowing to you as well, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with profits.
There's nothing wrong with profits. I think that so many people are like nervous about that. That's probably a different topic for a different day. But
it's a great topic.
It is a great money. That's kind of where your passion is.
Well, at least right now, is when I was in college, I had learned pretty quickly that some of my professors wouldn't be the best guide for me. And so I made it my goal, hey, I'm going to become as financially educated as possible. I want to know what's going on. I want to know how I can avoid these certain situations where, I don't have freedom. I don't have the ability to choose what I'm doing day to day. And so financial education and self-educating my financial education, that was the most important decision I made.
Love that. Well, we had all these questions. I didn't really ask you a lot of these questions. We just kind of talked.
Sure.
But I think that we probably answered a lot of them through our just organic conversation. Can I leave us on one question?
Sure.
Okay. Things are easier when you practice them year round, all the time. Don't ever stop. Don't take breaks. Don't stop practicing things. What do you wish you'd been better or more diligent about in order to prepare you for success after high school? When your high school self, if there was something that you wish you would have done all the time, not quit periodically or whatever, what would that be? Last thing.
Sure. And I'll leave it on a couple. So there was, at the time, if I could talk to my high school self and say, hey, why don't you just start reading this business book, or why don't you just start going to these networking events and meeting entrepreneurs, people who actually, produce products or sell real estate in my case, or why don't you just start in networking and getting a feel for these people, because if they can do it, I surely can do it, and I might be able to do it better.
Right? And that's what you found.
Yeah, and that's what I found is anything is possible if you just start early enough and you start to say, hey, I'm gonna take my own life into my own hands. And I was reading an article, and there's a great quote, and maybe we can just leave it on that, is you can blame other people for your problems, no problem, but it's your responsibility to solve them. And so sure, I had quizzes and pop quiz and tests, and I could blame other people for those problems. My professor were giving me these problems.
They didn't give me the information. They didn't,
Sure. But it was my job to say, hey, if I don't want to be here, I need to find the solution that will allow me to step away and create a business that will pay me to step away. And I can also provide a service to other people.
Continue to win.
Yeah, and continue to win. And that's important.
Yes. I love it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.